Right, if you got your worksheet, just want to do a few questions here before we break into some group work. So if we need more sheets, here's some more sheets.
Oh, okay.
And we're back to Monty back here. I think one of the things he said is it possible, he talked about all the evidence for cold case, and he said in his book, he said, is it possible to gather enough evidence today to prove that Jesus lived some 2,000 years ago?
Absolutely.
Yeah. All the things that we've talked about the first 3 weeks, all the extra biblical people that acknowledge that Jesus lived, Pontius Pilate's own records, acknowledging that Jesus was crucified, writers as far early as 100 AD talking about Jesus' crucifixion, his death, talking about the earthquake, talking about the eclipse that happened. So we have information like that. We have the Bible. So again, the Bible is filled with what? What kind of testimonies? Eyewitness testimonies, right? If you remember, what did Sir William Ramsay say about Luke as a historian?
Great.
Top notch. Yeah. So there is plenty of things that we can gather, and again, even from extra biblical sources, there's information out there that archaeology is doing more and more about that. So yeah, we can still put together a good enough case to show that Jesus lived, at least to create reasonable doubt in the mind of the atheists. That now they have to go, this could be possible. This could be possible. I got a call from somebody today that said, hey, you guys are doing that study on Wednesday night. I've got a person that doesn't believe. They believe in science. And I said, well, let me help you. We can do science and things like that as well. So he talked about there was three practices that we need to do in order to be able to present a good case. And the first one was what? Read the entire case book. All right. So when he talks about a criminal case, it's every crime report, investigative summary, eyewitness interview transcript, autopsy report, CSI, crime scene investigator, what were their reports? And then he says that you read all of that and make sure that it matches up, and all you're looking for inconsistencies. And so when you begin to do that kind of thing, then things become. But in order to do that kind of work, what do you have to be? Is it going to happen by chance? Are you going to stumble across it?
Intentional.
Is that intentional? Yeah, you got to be intentional, and you got to be committed. That's what made him such a good crime scene detective. Was because he was committed to finding those 20-year-old, 30-year-old murder cases and trying to solve them. He was committed to doing that. So you got to be intentional about what you're doing. Okay. The second practice he said was think about that. And I messed up there. I gave you a blank and the answer. It's supposed to be nature. Think about the nature of the evidence. Okay. So what is considered? Did he say? Like what could be considered good evidence?
Well, eyewitness to start with.
Eyewitness. Yeah. In the case of a cold case like this, he says, be open-minded and consider that everything might have value as evidence to prove that Jesus lives. Don't throw out something because you think, that probably doesn't mean anything. In his book, Cold Case Christianity, he talks about a murder case where they're interviewing some men about a woman's death, and the husband describes his wife as like, he says, my bride of 31 years, we've just gone out to dinner to celebrate. And then they interviewed another guy that had been an ex-boyfriend. And he said, I was standing over, sorry to see you're dead, but, we always get along, and we've broken off. And so then they eventually figured out, he said something like, sorry to see you're dead, and I'm standing there. And, oops. Somebody, the evidence showed, had kicked her body because the blood smeared. And so he was, all of a sudden now he's, just because of that one statement, sorry to stand there and see your dead, but oops.
Turns himself into an eyewitness.
Yeah. So, yeah, he did. So, consider everything. Don't throw out anything. Like I said, there's all kinds of extra biblical, archaeology, all kinds of things that are going on that can help us. And then the third practice was take notes and analyze. Every word matters. How many of you have a concordance at home? Yeah, There's another really good website called Blue Letter Bible, if you want to write that in your notes, blueletterbible.com. And you can type in what verse you're looking for, and then you can break it down by every Greek or Hebrew word. So if there's a word that you want to know more about, often that I use the example of love. I love sherry, and I love pepperoni pizza. They shouldn't be equal, but that's the only word I have to describe it. But in Greek, there's 4 different words for love. So you can kind of figure out when you see which of the 4 Greek words it is, what it is. There are like 12 or 13 different words for kill. So thou shalt not kill. Does war then count? If you're in war, does that kill? I mean, thou shalt not kill. Is that a?
Yeah.
It's a different word than the word that's in the Ten Commandments.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons why my dad thanks God for it, because for what he had to do in Vietnam, he wouldn't have gone for that.
Yeah, well, the word for thou shalt not kill in the Ten Commandments is the Hebrew word for like murder somebody. There's a different word for kill in battle. There's a different word for like kill an animal. There's a different word, so there's different words in those languages that we don't have. They're really rich, tons of vocabulary. And so when you start to analyze the Greek and the Hebrew, it becomes pretty fun. Somebody open up your Bible to Luke chapter 1 and read verses 1 through 4. Luke chapter 1, verses 1 through 4.
Inasmuch as many have undertaken to compile an account of things accomplished among us, just as those who from the beginning were eyewitnesses in service of the word have handed them down to us, it seemed fitting for me as well, having investigated everything carefully from the beginning, to write it out for you in the consecutive order, most excellent Theophilus, so that you might know the exact truth about the things you have been taught.
Right. So as you look at that from Luke, what are some key words you say in there that kind of describe what Luke is trying to do? What's he trying to do, first of all?
Compile an account.
Okay, it says, the Good News Version, it says, write a report of the things that have taken place. Okay? So he's going to do that. But it says, many people have done their best to write a report. So what does that tell you again? Remember all the evidence out there? Is the only account we have Luke's?
No.
No. Many other people have tried to write an account. So that means there's more evidence out there from other eyewitnesses or from other people. All right? So I'm going to write this account. And then what kind of witnesses is he talking to? Eyewitnesses. Those who have seen things from the beginning and proclaim the message. This is always a big deal. Those who have seen it or were the next generation and heard it straight from the mouth of somebody else. Mark is like that. Remember, Mark wasn't an eyewitness to all the things, but who did Mark? The Gospel of Mark? Whose thoughts is he writing down? Peter's. Right. Peter is recounting. Mark is his secretary, writing everything down. I have carefully studied all these matters from where? From the beginning. Yeah, from the beginning. So he's gone back and he has analyzed, taken notes, started the whole case. He's going back to the beginning. And then he's writing an orderly account. Right? Everything's going to be just right. Okay? Kind of like what a police report should be, or an investigative report. Everything's going to be step by step. Okay? I'm going to interview the eyewitnesses, people are there. And he says, I do this so that you will know what? Full truth. Okay? So that's what we're called to do, is to try to put things into an orderly account so that we can share it as we go. Now, again, in order to do that, what do we have to be? Intentional. We're committed, right? So I know in my daily Bible study, this is from August. This is what my daily Bible study looks like. Okay? I told you guys a little bit about the SOAP, S-O-A-P. So Scripture, in my readings, I always pick out at least one verse. Maybe it might be a passage of 2 or 3 verses. And what does it mean? What did I observe in it? what is it saying to me? How do I apply it to my life? And then write a prayer. How do I use what I'm learning into prayer? So I'm heavy right now in the book of Acts. And part of that is because I'm going to hopefully do a sermon series on the book of Acts and the early church and how it grew and what kind of things that they did. So I've got I've got a reading plan that's heavy on Acts right now, but then also just several smaller devotions that are going through Acts chapter by chapter. And I write down like this in one study, this is what they say, here's what I read from the Bible and how does it compare. So do and analyze it and say, okay, so that when Sherry will tell you that I want to make sure that what I teach you guys from the pulpit is, to the best of my knowledge, is the truth. So I do a lot of Hebrew and Greek word studies and things like that, and I enjoy it though. So I enjoy that kind of thing to do that. But that's to be again intentional in analyzing all of the things that we're doing. Okay. All right, so those of you watching online, there's going to be a short break here where you're not going to hear much conversation because the two tables are going to be working. You've got 3 questions before you, all right, on the back of that first sheet. And some of you who are watching have the sheets. I've sent them to you. The first one is a review. At your table, I want you to talk about, is the Bible reliable? Okay, if you were going to have a conversation as a group, what kind of things would you say? All right, this group 2. What kind of things would you use to say that the Bible is reliable? The second question then is, why does God allow suffering and evil? Okay, so we should come up with some reasons for that. How would you handle that objection when you're talking to somebody? And then the third question is, how could a good God or a loving God send nice people to hell? All right? Is that?
Because they sinned and did something they should have done, I guess.
But the question becomes then is, did God send people to hell? And that's the objection a lot of people have. So how could a good and loving God send people to hell? All right, so go to work at your table, share some ideas. How would you handle that objection if you were meeting with somebody who didn't believe?
On the rapture,
Don't tell me, tell them. You guys are putting together a plan here. How are you going to share that with somebody?
oh, the rapture, God loving bad people behind and took good. Left behind
Again, the 3 questions that they're discussing right now is kind of a review that we've done the first 3 weeks. Is the Bible historically reliable? How can you show people who doubt the authenticity and the truth of the Bible, how can you show them? What things could you point out that speaks to how the Bible can be true? The second, one of the more common objections to people who object to Christianity is, why would God allow suffering and evil? So how do you handle that when you're talking to somebody? And then how could a good God send nice people to hell? All right? So that's for you at home. Try to come up with, how would you handle that objection if you were sharing your faith with somebody?
The sheer number of prophecies are not Jesus fulfilled.
Oh, yeah.
Not trying to prove Christianity happen. No. If they say it's true, this is true.
So they're historical writings.
Well, yeah, scientific people and or something. So that is very strange to me.
The evidence of the flood is my example.
Great guy.
There is strong evidence, but there is also evidence out there, saying that this definitely had happened. So there's a lot of things.
Well, and the archaeological evidence just continues to prove.
Right. They find
These were the caves
I mean, they uncover something almost daily.
Yeah. And when I was in Israel, there's somewhere, they were.
Again, one of the reasons we're sharing this in groups is because I think we learn best from each other. And so somebody may have great insight, like Mike was just talking about the number of prophecies from the Old Testament that
have been fulfilled already in the New Testament and through the day, and how many of them pertain to Jesus. The likelihood of the 350 prophecies that pertain to Jesus being fulfilled in one man is nearly impossible. So those kind of things. Archaeological digs share some of the locations and dates. Last week we talked about the flood account that we find in Genesis chapter 6. The Babylonians and Sumerians both have a flood account in their history. And they're very similar. Some of the results are very similar to what we have in Scripture. So that said that it's not just a made-up thing by the Bible. It is a historical thing that took place when more than one civilization recognizes that it happened. And so they learn from each other, and are helping to build a case. So when they're shared to somebody who objects to Christianity, it's not enough just to say, well, because I believe the Bible to be true. Why? The Mormons believe the Book of the Mormon to be true. Muslims believe the Quran to be true. So what sets us apart in our beliefs and our scriptures set apart from them? We have to have some kind of way to show that it's reasonable. And so even if it's just, if we can get them to think that it's, that's a possibility, then we open the door to conversations, more conversations, that they think, well, okay, that is pretty true. So if this is true, then maybe this is true, and maybe this is true as well. And that's what we're hoping to get to the point where people will go, okay, it is possible in Christianity that Jesus was a real person. Jesus was who he said he was. So the other two questions we're working on is, why does God allow suffering and evil? And then the third question again is, why would God, a good God or a loving God, send people to hell? So come up with what you can. I'd love to hear. Email me or share your thoughts on Facebook. Love to hear what your thoughts are.
One of the documentaries that I
45,
watched, they were
verse 7, I create both light and darkness, I create both
locations
blessed
of the
and disaster.
and they were talking about the rivers that described, and the question is, why does not that he does allow it.
Three rivers.
The world is,
Yeah.
and why are there's natural disasters?
Yeah, there's one.
Well,
Yeah, the Paishan
when you
Islands.
go on from
They
verse
found
7, verse 8, I will send victory from the sky like rain.
in,
So basically, he allows this so that way he can show
and
victory.
it conjoins with the rest of
The
it.
earth will open to receive it and will blossom with freedom and justice.
It's either right before going into the sea or right,
Yeah.
or right after going. It's like.
Yeah.
So it's basically,
There's,
basically the
that doesn't exist. Oh, wait a minute,
allowing
they just found it.
this to
That doesn't
happen,
exist.
allows
Oh, wait a minute,
them
they just found
And they
it.
found all these, well, there's a washed down from the.
Have you ever heard the story about
All the way
Otto
down river.
There's this big
There's stones that obviously.
and
There was there.
the one group
That went on.
released
years that-
a section of this office building to a really bad bunch of people. Well, the guy that owns the office building had to honor
Well, they
the
took
lease.
an image from.
That's kind of the way
satellite
that
that-
Satan.
in outer space, and it shows that there is a bright river that.
It's a weird.
I always wonder, people are fighting on, what if we, you and I, the History Channel, talk about what's happened to Michael?
Do what now?
What's happened, I mean, if he did, right?
Yeah.
There's, yeah, I mean, because we're finding rock bottom, bad things happen.
Right.
I'm finding out things that happen. Different things that I've read back on,
That's
that's
true.
what,
That's true.
sometimes cowboy, you kick you in the butt just a little bit, other times you get a whack on real 2x4, Drew, upside the head. It was like a password, sometimes you get you.
Sure.
And how many people have I known that have gone through that time?
And different things that I've picked out of different readings, like,
Yeah.
of course, they don't have.
And when you do this,
History
man,
does.
God is there. Always is.
So,
we
Psalm
believe all
23,
that.
he says,
Now
I'll walk with you through the valley of the shadow, he said, I'll meet you on the other, he doesn't say I'll meet you on the other side.
That's.
Oh, and here's another verse that confirms what you just said, which was in verse 13, he says, I myself have stored signs to the action to fulfill my purpose and put things
But it
right.
is.
So he brought disaster to the
When
Israelites, so
they
that way
keep
he
pointing out to you,
could
that's been
deliver.
found, that's been found, that's been found, that's been found.
And if
that's
I
been
wasn't
found
born,
after
God would,
how many thousands
people
of
would do
years?
bad things.
Yeah, it doesn't exist.
Well, that's not where that's going.
Work on all three of them real quick.
Sometimes
Why does God
Why
allow
does
such?
God-
people go through things and then come out the other side, so they can help other people who are going through the same thing.
Yeah.
Issue of,
Corinthians, Second
We have to follow
Corinthians,
the,
chapter
in what
6.
With Genesis, basically, humanity chose to be a fallen
what would
people.
be really surprised if it were all glorious.
Humanity chose to be a fallen people.
Well, and I think it's to bring
And God is using
because he
the
used
fallen
like
people
the
to
common
do.
people in the Bible that he
Well,
used.
and there is somewhere where Isaiah was talking to God.
I
and
mean,
said, "Why
Jesus
is
was
there
one of
war?"
his followers, he's a
God says
disciple
it's my
walking
way
with
of
Jesus
dealing
for
with
how
the
long?
nations.
And he,
There's
God allowed Satan.
a clay pot here, or
Remember that part about he allowed Satan to.
a pot that is like all the others, does the clay ask the potter what he's doing?
The question is not that there is evil in the world, but why does God allow it?
And see,
So that's kind of
you were saying,
All right.
free will, yeah, there is free will, but when you get to be babies born with cancer,
God does
or
not send
born
these
with
people to hell
whatever,
because there are no
they
people.
didn't sin.
We're all
It
broken.
wasn't their choice. So it comes back
I
to
mean-
why did God
Why
allow
does
it?
God allow that?
It did.
And in my thinking, it's because of what Sherry is saying, it is to
I mean, the
draw
reason
people
for the
to
flood
Him,
was
to strengthen us,
because the
to
intent
give us
of
a word
everyone's
so that
heart
we
was
can help those
continuously.
who are also going through that are Christians.
The heart
What
is
about
desperately
9/11?
wicked. Who could know
Yeah,
it?
it-
Yeah.
Only God.
but
There's a right way that seems right to it.
The
But
people of the
it's
United
in
States
this
are pulled
destruction.
together
I
and,
mean, there's lots of
And
passages
we're
in the
behind us.
Bible that talk about
each other through all that.
people that think they're doing the right thing.
What about those,
kind of thing.
all those people that go missing? and-
I don't know how to put that.
Yeah, people weren't, they're not, people are.
That's all evil, why did God allow it?
Well, yeah.
Remember that hell is a disconnection.
Produced stories that you see on
And
TV.
God does not want the disconnection,
The
that comes
testimony
from
is the
the
people
person.
around
And
them
so,
that went missing. and
God does
the
not send that person to hell. The person sends himself to hell.
And that their faith
The
came through, shining through. So
Romans, the first chapter of Romans, talks about man's descent into hell, basically.
And yet she walked up to the guy.
It said even though they knew God, they didn't honor him as
What a
God.
statement.
It's important
They got
to
kicked
me
out
that
of
God
heaven.
doesn't
Into his straight, worship rather than God.
suffering and evil.
That's
Well, Satan is,
Like a
Satan
fallen
is in the
angel,
world
a
seeking
fallen angel got
to
kicked out of heaven and
to
went to
destroy
hell.
lives, and so, I mean, we have a different, and it's not just God, it's just, I mean, like, those of us who love God and follow Him, I mean, as a prime example, my friend Pam, who had cancer for over 20 years, she loved Jesus, she walked with Jesus, she loved God, she loved the Holy Spirit, and she died about a year ago, but, I mean, faithful. They actually had her Bible at her funeral, and it was just like question marks and highlighted, and
For the wrath of God
just
is revealed
amazing
from
moment
heaven
of faith.
against all
And the other thing I think
ungodliness and
about too is
unrighteousness
like,
of people who
if things were
suppress the
so
truth
good
and
here on earth, would
unrighteousness,
we
because
ever long?
that which is known about God is evident within
See,
them,
if
for God
it's
made
so
it.
amazing, what if it's so amazing here on earth, why would we ever want to go to heaven?
Yeah.
Like, if our life
There's
is so
kind of a
good
certain-
here on earth, why would we ever want to leave?
Something.
Yeah.
And that
God
leads us
bless
right
you.
to the next question,
But
how could
where
a good
verse did
God
that come from?
send nice people
Starting
down
at Romans,
and,
chapter 1, verse 18.
Well,
but nice people that we perceive as nice, that do good things.
God knows,
If they don't
knows more about it than
Yeah,
what we
yeah.
know.
Yeah.
God knows in the heart.
That's what I was considering that too, yeah.
God
See,
wants
these are
us
some of
to
the things that we've been
Yeah, I was gonna do
struggling
that.
with in our,
God
let's say,
reveals
we're going
us.
to know why. Why
He
does
was
God
bad
allow
for
it?
things
Why
change.
does God
Exactly.
As long as they accept
allow nice people?
Yeah, but
to
accept
be
Jesus as Lord and
Itself.
Savior.
We've been,
Well, and God can't look on sin.
Yeah.
He can't live on sin, he can't be near sin. And
Thing
so
is
the only
that
way for us to be with
if
him,
you go back
as
and look
nice
at this
people to be with him,
there,
is to have Jesus as our
the
sacrifice.
signs just
So,
in this,
I mean, we have neighbors that are
beyond just
nice,
the book,
but
is
they're
there
not going
evidence
to
that
heaven.
that's what you do?
They're not going to heaven because they haven't accepted the gift that's given to us. So,
Going
And I
beyond,
can. to me,
because they'll say, well,
that
that's just
question
one,
posed to
this
me
is just
many
one
times.
piece of evidence versus.
sure,
The
absolutely.
non-believers thinking, you know, why?
That's the challenge.
That's nice
We have to go
people.
beyond just this, we have to go.
What do you think about
Another
children,
step
you know, like you said, having cancer? I mean, they're not bad.
Well, if
You
we
know, they're not
establish
bad
that the
people.
Bible is
So why do you allow that? But just because,
in the beginning,
oh no,
Then we can
absolutely.
use it
It's because we
to
live in a fallen world.
answer these
And
questions.
that's the sin that I
Yeah, and
refer
that's
to
why the
when
first
I
question
say
was,
it's caused by sin.
liability
It
by-
isn't necessarily your sin or my
Go
sin,
back
but
to-
it's not that person's
Go
sin,
back to
but
the
it
very
is the
beginning,
sin
like chapter 6 of
of the entire
Genesis.
world. Because we are in a fall, yeah.
The Babylonians have a very similar account, even have a hero who built the boat and took
I think
him.
sometimes too, you just have to
And
get to the
Samaritans
point
have a
where
list
I
of
don't
kings,
know it
and
all.
the list of kings is split down.
I don't know it all. I mean, I'm not God. I'm just gonna trust that He knows it all, and I'm gonna just leave it to Him.
The question
But
there
it's
though
not gonna
is
be good
that,
enough for somebody else.
then that story beget the other story, which beget the other story, so it's a continuous
I'm convinced.
retelling of the story as opposed to the 3 separate accounts. That's the question of those accounts and stories as it goes through. Sure, you have to.
Not just narrating one,
this question, but
there's a natural divide between kings, so if they could have just copied our story and slid it in there, there would have been a huge gap. And
Okay.
what caused all of a sudden, kings living 200 and 300 years, now all of a sudden,
about
we're only living
Christ,
100
that
years.
is,
You know, just something had to take
or
place
even the Old
to
Testament.
change our.
Well,
And the
and
question
then
comes
after
into.
that, we had rain.
And they're gonna keep asking.
I mean, it didn't rain until the flood.
Just because it doesn't say something doesn't mean it didn't. There is natural, God has placed natural laws in this
The Bible
world,
tells me to.
and one of the is convection.
Well,
So there would be convection even before the flood.
That's when you have to build.
Yeah, we went round and
relationships.
round on
I mean,
this.
in the old days, you could go and knock on somebody's door and ask them,
The thing is if you try to tell someone just because there's an absence here, and then try to use that as proof, they will eviscerate you.
So that they can understand, and you have to live.
An
a
atheist
life
will
to be like,
eviscerate
when you love outrageously, when you
What we're
love
trying
so
to do
much,
is
and
at least
people are like,
create.
you know,
Now
that
they have to
person
say,
did
well,
you
that
wrong,
is
but you're
reasonable.
still so, you talk so kindly
That's
about that
possible.
person or
Yeah,
whatever.
saying that there's no
And
rain before the
relationship, and
flood would
unfortunately, I mean,
be,
Jesus is coming.
they will say that is not
I believe
possible,
he's
you need to
coming
prove
soon,
that.
and
You-
if you don't
If
have
your,
that time,
if your evidence
you're
is,
not
well, it didn't say
gonna
it
have
right,
that time
then that's
to
not
build
gonna.
relationships with
Just
them.
an aside.
We're called to love them,
But
and-
as
I
soon as you
probably-
bring up something
I
like that,
probably wouldn't
You know,
bring
we're
it
always
up.
like, we
that's a
really
good thing,
honestly
because
say that
if you're in a debate with an atheist, as soon as you bring up something that you can't back up, they're going to seize on it, and that'll validate their viewpoint in their minds, and then the debate is over.
But you also have to know.
That's why this is so hard.
Yeah, and that's what I said, you're never gonna
And
be,
that's not something.
never be able to go 100%.
I mean, I know it. I
For
read it.
yourself.
I have absolutely no
For
doubt.
He
Yeah.
said, as I started studying this, it became like,
And I do have evidence,
and
but
then
I
if you get
don't know
enough
if it's evidence.
reasonable circumstantial evidence,
Well, the other thing is, I know that you can
And
only
you
do
get
what
somebody
you
to
do,
work.
and then you have to leave the rest to the Holy Spirit. I mean, you know,
And for
I
God to
think,
prepare them.
yes,
To
absolutely.
hear.
5 or 6 more minutes.
But you're right, it takes relationships,
Intentionality, being intentional.
and we're.
Everything okay, Penny?
Oh,
yeah,
just like in both directions.
How convinced you are.
They watch you, they're watching your life and how you react to things and how you live your life. And hopefully they'll love what that is, what that is.
And it's amazing how many people are watching you. You know, I was a teacher for 30 years.
Well, he worked tonight.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was saying, he would enjoy this.
Oh, he would.
This is what I meant.
Absolutely.
My stepdad is one of these.
Oh, I
Well,
see.
I've been with my people, just like.
Well, these are a lot of
Like,
things
now
that
I
we
know
do
you're
is
a
full of
Christian,
stuff, so.
and it's
pull up the videos and let me watch
But
it.
no,
That
not
just
the
makes me
video,
feel good.
but he's
I
doing
mean,
it with the Christian Merciful
Like,
Association.
to be able to sit on
No,
Saturday.
the Alliance was in forensics.
Video?
Oh, he would love this kind of stuff.
Yes.
People who are in the Navy, forensics, I love this kind of stuff.
Randy likes to get them riled.
I
and- Yeah.
said that if I could hear less. I gave section 3 and I want to
Usually
do
about
one,
Okay,
too.
I got another hand up here
Yeah.
too, so.
And he's not doing it, but he's different.
Yeah,
She was
all right, as long as he's doing it, we don't
Yeah,
care.
and let's do something, we're doing, like, it's a lesson, I've been giving lessons for the Christian Merciful Association Bible study, Saturday morning Bible study.
Cool.
Yeah. Everyone in the group likes lessons, so that.
One of the recipes you can always approach.
Our daughter, she
You clear.
Yeah, our daughter owns a bicycle here in Wichita, and
Investigate the answers
she
with me.
loves
Yeah,
Jesus,
I
and
can
she,
join
Yes.
any opportunity that she can, she'll try to incorporate her faith in her care for her patients, right? And lots of times she'll say just simple words like, "It's such a blessing to see you today," or "I just have been so blessed by just your visit today," that, you know, just things like that. Like, people are like, we don't use that word. You know what I mean? Like, people that don't know Jesus, they don't use the word blessed, or even grateful, thankful. So, I think
Just, in another work situation, we were a group, and we all worked kind of together in the same, for the same thing.
Yeah, got pretty much with my.
I think we're done.
Noah was 600 years old when the flood started.
Computers. Come look at this.
A couple minutes.
And I got out here and I started over there, I said, you don't want to see this.
protecting
Because I
you.
didn't want to see that, I'm sure.
All right, another minute or two, and then we're gonna have each table share what they came up with, the questions, and then one table will share, then the other table will add anything extra, and then we'll swap seats and let them do it the other way around.
The year of Noah's life in the second month on the 17th day of the month.
Exactly.
So is his birthday or whatever, anniversary or
On that day, all the fountains of the great deep burst open,
And he said,
and the floodgates of the sky were open, and the rain fell upon the earth for 40 days and 40 nights.
you're your boss.
Well, it must have been
It's a little different when you're.
No,
So, but-
that is one thing that some people that numbers are,
But she
if there are
basically does that
particular
for
numbers,
her
then usually they have a
for
meeting.
her clinic, and one of her patients came in and said, you know, I really, love the care here, your people are so good and stuff, but I don't really care for
So
your
if there
visit.
is a precise, if
Like
they're
physical therapy.
that precise about Noah's
Yeah, I'm happy to write that down for you, if you're, oh no, we're not saying anything, I'm just saying, I don't really.
Not anything, but.
It's just like, well, it's my.
If you go backwards,
My
All right,
clinic, I'll
here we
do
go.
whatever I want.
When you guys are talking now, make sure that you talk loud enough they can hear you on there. What kind of things did you guys write down for? How can we show that the Bible's reliable? Anybody want to read some of your answers?
It's filled with eyewitness testimony.
Okay, filled with eyewitness testimonies. What else do you have?
Archaeological evidence.
Archaeological evidence.
Prophecies fulfilled from Old Testament that came to passing in the New Testament.
Yeah, that number of prophecies that were in the Old Testament fulfilled in the New Testament. And I think on the handout we had before, it came out to where it was like 10 to the 200, which would be like almost next to impossible. So it's pretty, again, all those prophecies were fulfilled so far is amazing. Anything else?
Other historical writings that back up what's in the Bible.
Okay, other historical writings that back up the Bible. Again, we know that, for example, Pontius Pilate's records record that Jesus of Nazareth was crucified. Other historical writers, early fathers, talk about the earthquake, the eclipse, different things like that.
We came up with new archaeological evidence that currently is proving out.
Yeah. Today, even digs are still going on in the Middle East that they're finding new and more evidence almost daily.
Especially the New Testament.
Huh?
Especially.
Yeah, especially New Testament.
Yeah.
Yeah. Any other ones that you guys came up with besides that?
Basically what they said.
Yeah.
Yeah, all of them.
What they said.
Yeah.
All right, then you guys start with the second question. Why does God allow suffering and evil? Again, the question's not, is there evil and suffering in the world, but why does God allow it? What do you guys have for that?
The real question is, I mean, the word allow really isn't so much the case, I don't think, but it's to draw people closer to Christ.
Okay, to allow people's circumstances to draw closer to Christ.
It helps them to be, if you've gone through something, then you can then reach out to somebody else who is going through that same situation and draw them to Christ for the comfort that you have drawn from Him.
Yeah. Paul writes in Corinthians that He's the God of all comfort who shared comfort so that we can share the comfort that we receive from God with others.
To fulfill his plans.
Okay, to fulfill His plan.
In Isaiah 43, he mentions that it's so that God may be glorified in victory.
Okay, so that God may be glorified in victory. Again, He promises that everything will be overcome. I promise you victory. I've overcome. You're going to have trouble. I've already overcome it. So we know we're going to have trouble. But He's overcome it. Okay, what else? What do you allow suffering and evil?
I think to grow us closer to him.
Okay. Grow you into the person He desires that you be. I don't know if you guys watch like NCIS. With Gibbs, Gibbs and Denozo. Yeah. Gibbs, Denozo gets a little bit off track, and Gibbs always like pops him upside the back of the head.
He's good.
So
Denozo's coming back.
Yeah.
This day.
God will use suffering and evil to help move you to a direction that He wants you to go, where He thinks you need to be. If you've gotten off track, bad things can happen to bring you back into a relationship with Him and back to where He needs you to be. Hopefully it's not a 2x4 upside the head, but more the get slapped upside the head. That we haven't gotten too far off. Okay? What else can you think of? I'll remember that word, I don't remember the thing. That word that God allowed. God has permissive will. He's got direct will where He's going to bring about things no matter what, but He also has permissive will where He allows things to happen.
God has free will.
Yeah.
He
Satan-
doesn't make it happen,
No.
but He allows
He
it to
allows it
happen.
to
Yeah.
All you got to do is remember Job. Satan went before God and said, "Let me test your servant Job."
And God says, don't kill him.
Yeah, don't kill him. You can do everything you want, but don't kill him. And then a little bit later in the New Testament, Jesus says, "Peter, Satan has asked to sift you like wheat." Okay, so God will allow those things again to bring glory, to get you back on the right track, to grow you as a person into the person He wants you to be. Right? So He does allow it, but again, it's all free will. Excuse me. You have to remember that. I know you guys are talking about like a baby having cancer. I think I shared from the pulpit one time that they thought I had cancer and I didn't smoke or do anything like that, but I lived in El Dorado where there's 2 refineries. And as a world, the United States consumes more natural resources than almost any other country in the world. We have only about 5% of the population, we consume 25% of natural resources. So there's such a thirst for oil and petroleum and plastics. So as mankind, we bring that stuff on us. That baby's fault that they didn't eat cancer. Probably not even the mom and dad's fault, but if you lived in El Dorado, chances are you're going to get cancer.
We live in a fallen world.
Yeah. Since the beginning of time. So Satan is the one that brought it into the world. God allows it to fulfill His purposes. Right? The last one was, why would God, a good God or a loving God, send people to hell?
God does not send people to hell.
That's right. God does not send people to hell.
You get a choice.
Right? You get a choice. Okay? People have a choice.
Hell is basically separation from God.
Yeah.
And so if a person chooses to deny God, then he is actually separating himself from God, not God separating himself from that person.
That's right. God's gonna knock on the door, it says in Revelation 3:20, but he's not gonna kick the door in. And so if you choose not to have a relationship with God, God's not gonna reach down on the day you die and pull you up to heaven. You didn't want to be here before, I'm not gonna force you to come now.
What about these, deathbed, conversions?
It's biblical.
Yes, it is.
Go to Easter.
God,
Thief on the cross.
God is always right there when you call on him.
Yeah.
Even though you've rejected him, he has not rejected you. And he is there, ready to put his arms around you.
And that could be a whole nother lesson, because there are rewards in heaven, there are crowns and things like that. So the thief on the cross didn't have any opportunity to,
He gets a cardboard box.
he may get the room. Sherry and I talk about this all the time. I'm gonna get a room in the mansion. She says she's gonna get a mansion. Depending on what translation you read in the Bible, it says that he's preparing, in my Father's house are many rooms. You know, so I'm gonna get a room, but I'll probably get a cardboard box down by the river, which would be okay by me, as long as there's horses. So,
I'll take the deposit.
yeah. So yeah, God doesn't send people have a choice. We don't do forced marriages in our country. We allow people to have a choice.
Or, one thing I don't like is arranged marriages, it should be for love. There's some countries that do arranged marriages, and they don't like that at all, they should not be that way.
Not free will, not love. Okay. Yeah, so those are some of the reasons. And so we hope that you caught those so that you can maybe took notes too. I know some of you have sent these forms too, that you can start to build your case, what you've heard from everybody tonight as a group. So I'm going to kill the live right now because I have 3 more videos. I sent the links to you if you wanted them. Let me know. But we're going to look at 3 more quick videos here, and I can't live stream them the same way we can't live stream the other one. So have a good night. Thanks for being here. Bye.
What did you mean by kill? Now, how does that word used? Kill the video.
Which one was it?